यस। गुड इवनिंग डॉक्टर्स। नवी मुंबई डॉक्टर्स फाउंडेशन की 119 सीएमई में मैं डॉक्टर संगीता श्रीवास्तव, फैमिली फिजिशियन सीवुड्स, आप सभी का हार्दिक अभिनंदन करती हूँ। आई ऑल्सो वेलकम today's eminent speaker, Dr. Upendra Kinjavdekar. Dr. Upendra is consultant pediatrician at Kamlesh Mother and Child Hospital, Nerul, and Apollo Hospitals, Navi Mumbai. He has 29 years of wide work experiences. Dr. Upendra has numerous publications, author and co-author of textbooks, journals, and IPA modules. Dr. Upendra had post of honorary treasurer in IAP 2018 and 19. He has a special interest in infectious diseases, nutrition, vaccinology, pulmonology, and general pediatrics. Dr. Upendra is in COVID task force by Navi Mumbai Municipal Corporation. Dr. Upendra is wonderful singer and actor too. Now I invite Dr. Upendra for his talk on approach to COVID suspected and COVID positive child. Over to you, Dr. Upendra.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much, Dr. Sangeeta Madam, for that kind introduction. At the outset, let me thank this Navi Mumbai Doctors Foundation, which is organizing this 119th interactive webinar. That's a wonderful feat, and please accept my congratulations. And you're doing a commendable job, especially these times when everybody is, little low key, but keeping them motivated, giving them wonderful academics is by no way it's a mean feat. At the outset, let me also thank Dr. Kiran Godse, Dr. S.V. Kulkarni, and of course, Dr. Arun Kure for their kind invitation, for allowing me to share my experiences as far as a pediatrician is concerned and COVID in pediatrics is concerned. So what we are going to do today, all of us know that these are current times are COVID times. It's a pandemic time. So coronavirus is a responsible virus. It is actually a human and animal pathogens which is known to mankind since many years. But by the end of year 2019, this novel coronavirus was identified as a cause of cluster of pneumonia. Suddenly it came, I remember the newspaper headlines in end of December 2019. Started off in Wuhan, then in the Hubei province of China. It spread across China. I'm not sure how much because they've hidden. They're still stuck at 83,000 figures, which I doubt seriously. And then it has gone to Italy, from there to Europe, and then to US, and then it came to India also. We were caught a little bit unaware, and then March 18th onwards, all of us are facing this lockdown period. Ultimately, WHO declared, but I can say little bit it was forced to declare it as a pandemic. So that is how we are all into it right now. Before going ahead, it's my duty to pay our humble tributes to these warriors. More than 50 general practitioners in Maharashtra have lost their lives as COVID warriors. And as a pediatrician, I must also say to share with you that there are more than 25 pediatricians who are members of our National Academy, Indian Academy of Pediatrics, who have also lost their lives while battling, and they have been corona warriors. And they're even from Maharashtra, places like Udgir, Ratnagiri, from nearby places in Gujarat like Surat, Ahmedabad, everywhere we have had mortality. So we are really sorry, and we pay our sincere tributes to these warriors. What my flow of session is going to be, I'll be talking a little bit about overview of COVID, neonatal presentations. It starts off with pediatric presentations, some investigations which are done in day-to-day practice, treatment, what is it, what is the current status, what is this MISC or PIMS, I'll talk about it later, and certain take-home practice tips as far as you and me in our day-to-day practice, how can we take care of ourselves as well as our patients. So as of today, 27th August at afternoon, I just updated myself with, we have more than, 24 million cases in the world with about 8.29 lakh deaths. We are rapidly catching up with Brazil. So that's a very unfortunate thing. So we are at 33 lakhs national figure, Brazil at 37, but the difference is now 4 lakhs only. And our population is much, much bigger. So unfortunately, we'll be soon reaching the number 2 position. We have had 60,000 deaths. That's very unfortunate. And last unfortunate part is we, Maharashtra, the most industrious nation, the most economically advanced nation in the country, unfortunately leads the COVID tally also, and we have maximum cases in our state. So let's start off with, I'm going to concentrate basically on pediatric part, me being a pediatrician. And I'm sure all of you have had a wonderful overview over in your number of interactive webinars that you have already had. But let me just give you an overview about what is pediatric COVID as of now today, when we talk about it on 27th of August. So basically remember that children of all ages can get COVID. So no age is immune for COVID. That is very important. Children appear to be affected less commonly. So that is a good thing as far as me as a doctor is concerned. In surveillance from various countries, children typically accounted for 1 to 8% of lab confirmed cases. So the figures from as less as 1% and as maximum as 8%. If you ask me about what are Indian figures, so we stand at 4%. So roughly out of 100 patients of COVID which are lab diagnosed, 96 are adults and 4 are pediatric cases. And most of our pediatric cases naturally will have a household contact. So that is how we go about it. So can children get it? So COVID-19, which we call right now at SARS-CoV-2, had two elder brothers. All of us know. Let me just take you back to history. In 2002, we first had the SARS, and wherein it was about 7% children globally were affected. Then came 2012 Middle East Respiratory Syndrome. So it was MERS. At that time, it was 2%. Though we were all worried about it, but fortunately, both these previous episodes of coronavirus diseases aborted wonderfully. I don't know how much credit we should take ourselves as medical practitioners, but basically it just got spontaneously stopped. Of course, some efforts were also taken. And then now this third one, SARS-CoV-2, unfortunately has a very high transmission capability. All of us have seen that. And compared to its two elder siblings, so it is much more virulent as far as and even transmissibility is concerned. So why basically the question comes to your mind is why COVID is less common in children? Everybody thinks. We always thought that all diseases, children are more susceptible, especially viral illnesses. Children are more susceptible. But precisely that is the reason that children are less susceptible to COVID. So we have children who have less intense immune response. Immune response is of two types, the innate immunity and the adaptive immunity. Innate is by which we are born. So my congenital inherited fighting capacity to the infection is innate. And adaptive is when I am confronted with an infection, my body makes certain changes. My immune system takes cognizance of it and helps me protect by creating certain antibodies. So that's adaptive immunity. And this intense immune response is much less in pediatric age group. That's very differentiating factor from adults. Secondly, the viral interference. Children, as we said, there are so many viruses, the viral infections are occurring all throughout the year. So that in fact interferes. So this corona SARS-CoV-2 doesn't get much foothold in the children pediatric respiratory tract. That's a good thing that because there are so many other viral illnesses which are coming. Thirdly, children get BCG and MMR vaccination. So in fact, there is a trial going on whether BCG and MMR can be given to adults, our senior population, so they can be protected. So that is another way that children, because they have been given this vaccination, they have a natural protection to SARS-CoV-2. Fourthly, there is a different expression of ACE2 receptors. All of us know this angiotensin converting enzyme 2 receptor, which is in the respiratory tract and which is responsible for all the, actual viral replication occurs because it binds with this ACE2 receptor. Now, this expression is different in pediatric as compared to adult. That's number 4. Last but not the least, children definitely have healthier blood vessels, healthier lungs. There is no smoking. There is not much of lipids. There is no thickening. The arteries are not narrowed. So no hypertension. So children basically, thankfully, and as a pediatrician, I'm very happy that children are less susceptible to COVID. But at the same time, can children transmit? If you ask me, yes, definitely. So they are the silent spreaders. This is very, very important. Please take a note of it that asymptomatic children definitely play a role in transmission. So you feel a child who does not have any symptoms is a small child. I already talked about viral interference. The force of cough is less. He has milder symptoms. So how will it transmit? That question must be coming across your mind. So that is very important. That there is a Massachusetts General Hospital which has just published its result today, in fact, that they randomly checked 192 children and out of which they found 49 were positive for COVID. So these were asymptomatic COVID positive. And when they did their CT value, the cycle threshold, all of us are aware of it now. the greater viral load. And whom did they compare it with? They compared it with the adults of COVID positive who were battling it out in ICU. So on one hand, you have pediatric patients asymptomatic, and on another hand, you have adults in ICU. They're that sick. But who were more likely to transmit to others? It was pediatric age group. Please don't take it lightly that asymptomatic pediatric patients, we will need not worry. And that is the problem, that when our CM or PM is going to think about schools and colleges reopening, at this stage, let me just share you with you that as far as pediatrics is concerned, there is very limited data available from pediatric studies. Most of the studies which are published are from adult literature, and we have extrapolated to pediatric population. Now, all of us know that the senior most, the wisest, most knowledgeable person in this world has knowledge of COVID-19 for about 8 months. That's maximum. So we need to remain updated. Science is continuously changing and evolving. So don't be dogmatic and say, no, no, this doesn't happen in COVID, or this definitely happens in COVID. Let's be very open to whatever changes are happening. Now, for example, loss of taste and smell symptom. Have we ever heard of it when we did that Janta curfew or the first lockdown started? We never heard of this symptom. Remdesivir, we never were not aware of this drug. But these are all new things which have come up in the last 2-3 months, and we should be aware of this. So finally, most important message I would like to say is protect yourself and your patients. So there is no way, though we have limited knowledge, one thing is certain, we are going to protect ourselves and our patients. So if you ask me about age distribution, what is it? There are two peaks, as you can see, that less than 1 month is considered to be a high risk situation. So about less than 7 months, most of the others are into 10 to 20%. And maximum pediatric age group which gets affected is 10 to 18 years, and that's 34%. So that is roughly the international age distribution. And in India also, little bit here and there difference, but you can remember that mostly more than 10 years. But all of us are going to be very cautious when we are dealing with an infant who is less than 1 month. So the next question, now we have understood that children can get, how children can get, but very important to understand how they get this COVID-19. So most of these cases come from secondary household contact. So they have done studies in China and USA, and what they found that China, they could trace it to 7% household contacts, USA 27%. So that means why I have put these figures is very important to understand. So about 75%, 70 to 73% of cases, we are not sure who is that contact. So children can get, whether the aerosol spread is also known, or whether there is any other way or some unknown contacts. We are not yet sure, because we know that in India, at least last 6 months, our kids are not going out. They are not even going to play, forget schools and colleges. But we need to remember that. Healthcare, yes, there was a child who was admitted for some heart surgery in one of the tertiary hospitals in Mumbai, and therein nothing happened. And then after 8 days, he started running fever, and the test was done. Of course, on admission, he was negative. And second time, it was found to be positive. That means our healthcares can also transmit this. So one thing to remember, schools and colleges still not open, but we have to think about it. Unfortunately, Maharashtra Chief Minister has just yesterday announced that he is going to think 10 times before giving a green signal to all schools and colleges to open. So is the incubation period different as far as adults and pediatric is concerned? Not really, but it's much shorter as compared to adults. There is a wide variation from 1 to 14 days usually is the incubation period of COVID. But in pediatrics, it's about 2 days. So as fast as that, child can get it from someone, grandmother, grandfather, or father, mother, anybody. So does it come from breast, or at birth can the baby get it congenitally, or from transplacentally, or through breast milk? Let us see that part also. So with that, I'll just come to a couple of cases. This is a first case. These are real cases from my hospital. This is a 28-year-old previous LCS mother. She came in labor. Unfortunately, she could not come for earlier follow-ups. We usually do routine COVID testing earlier before they go into labor. But this lady had missed that part. So on admission, swab was sent. She was in labor. We are not aware of the reports. So reports are negative. So she underwent a LACS delivery. Baby fortunately cried immediately, but baby on admission, in fact, had respiratory distress, and the saturation at birth was 90. So now the questions in our mind were we dealing with COVID pneumonia, or what was it, a transient tachypnea of pneumonia, or was it a congenital pneumonia? So what is it? So the point to be remembered that these are the different possibilities when a baby comes with respiratory distress. The baby's CBC was normal, CRP, which suggests some infection, that was normal. Blood culture we sent, that's a routine practice, and the baby was started on antibiotics. A routine first line antibiotics was started. And then obviously we do X-ray. So X-ray was done, and as you can see, there's a big patch which is involving the right upper and mid zone, and it's a right paracardiac shadow is definitely there. And you can differentiate it. There is a difference. You can see that it's not continuing with heart. So nothing to do with heart, and it was something like that, whether it was thymus or pneumonia. So we were wondering about it. So fortunately, these 24 hours, though all of us were tense, the report came and PCR was negative. Baby gradually improved. So it was basically congenital pneumonia. So point to be noted and remembered is non-COVID causes are much more likely than COVID pneumonia. So this baby had congenital pneumonia unrelated to COVID. So this is how the baby's repeat X-ray was done after the course of antibiotics for 7 days. And this was absolutely clear. Baby is doing perfectly all right. So that brings me to the important point of how to deal with COVID-19 positive mother. So infants, because I come into picture when the mother delivers. So infants of mothers with suspected or confirmed COVID-19, they have to undergo testing at about 24 hours of age. And there we do RT-PCR. We do not do antigen test. Repeat testing should be performed at 48 hours if the first was negative. The first was positive, it's over. The story ends because this baby has already got it. But if it is negative, we have to do it twice at 48 hours. But suppose the baby is totally asymptomatic and we are contemplating discharge. Nowadays, by 48 hours, we discharge these mothers. Then in between 24 to 48 hours, we are supposed to do this test. Okay. So who are these babies who are at risk newborns? So mode of transmission is to be remembered. The vertical transmissions, it can occur transplacentally during the birth process. And they have done a study on about 1,000 newborns where the mothers were COVID-19 positive and only 16 babies were found to be positive. Even vaginal delivery, because of the maternal secretions or even the feces, so GI tract also, that can also transmit. So these are the different ways that baby can get affected. Mother had, so which patients to test? Mother where the COVID-19 is positive in last 14 days, there's the contact of COVID-19 in family, and unexplained pneumonia if it is there, then all these patients, one has to, if these babies are there, then one has to test, otherwise not. But please, let me reassure you and end the story on newborns that more than 95% of newborns are asymptomatic. It's a mild disease and it has excellent prognosis. Remember that. But at the same time, let me tell you certain more important points that after delivery, we have to room in. So we do not keep mother and baby. Even we are talking about COVID-19 positive mother, but still, unless the mother is extremely sick or unless the baby is extremely sick who requires NICU care and mother requires ICU care, that's a different story. But otherwise, baby has to be with mother. Exclusive breastfeeding is still, even if the mother is COVID-19 positive, mother has to wear, obviously, it should not go, direct contact should not happen. Face masks, hand hygiene, the mother has to follow. And 10 to 12 days, all of us know by 12 days, in fact, 10th day, but maximum we can stretch it up to 12 days that one doesn't become infectious, though your test may remain positive. And last but not the least, all of you need to remember that all the vaccinations, even if this baby was COVID-19 positive mother's baby, the BCG, hepatitis B, the oral polio, and all rest of the vaccination from 6 weeks onwards are as per schedule. But there are many stories which are getting unfolded. Just yesterday's Marathi newspaper showed this. This lady, April she delivered, and she was pregnant for about, I think, 8 weeks she was pregnant, and she got COVID, and within a month's time she aborted. Fortunately, these people had tested the placenta as well as taken samples from this abortus, and they found it to be positive. So whether this abortion occurred spontaneous because of COVID, we are not sure. I'm not making a statement like that. But if you, those who can read Marathi, prasuti hoiparanta dekhrek garjechi. We are not yet sure. The final answer is not yet out, but remember that it can happen. And there is another case that preterm newborn shows severe virus infection. This is in Pune Bharati Hospital. So wherein what happened, this baby 34 weeks delivered, had so many problems. They initially thought it was only because of prematurity. Baby was given ventilation for about a month. The steroids, everything was given, but ultimately baby recovered. But then it was, of course, this mother was also COVID-19 positive. And then they found this newborn baby at the end of 2 months had already shown changes of lung fibrosis in its CT scan. So that's very scary. So let me bring your attention to a very serious point, that this is again another newspaper report which showed cured of COVID-22 20 to return to KM with pulmonary fibrosis. So it is a possibility. We are not yet sure what this COVID does. Why I told you that, let me be very serious about it. Many of us feel that kai hot nahi, होऊन जाऊ दे एकदा COVID, भीती तरी जाईल, let young people have it. No, please don't take it lightly, because we are not yet sure what is going to happen to their lungs tomorrow. So it is always better, if we have it, then we have to treat it, everything will do. But prevention remains important, and let's never ever take a casual step, ekda होऊन जाऊ दे COVID. No, please not. Okay, that second case is a 3-year-old child comes with fever for 2 days. So what is the first question I have to ask? This is only fever for 2 days. So any comorbidities? So that is the first question. I'll tell you what are those important. What are the common symptoms that I talk when I talk about COVID? Should we test this child? What are the other investigations? How I grade severity? Is it different from adults? What is the treatment that can offer? When to hospitalize these patients? All these questions come to our mind. In fact, this child today morning in the OPD and with mother also. So that was most important. Ask for history of contact. So they came from Ulve. There's a neighboring note from Nerul. And what happened is this mother also had fever. So you have to literally dig into the details history. Initially, if you ask Ghari Kunala COVID hai, so they never say that, yes, father had, mother had something. Fever, go into details. Please, it is important to share. Then they said, 2 days ago mother had or somebody else had and now baby has. So as I said, household contacts becomes very, very important. So spend some time. If you have good rapport with the family, they will tell you. Otherwise you feel that no contact, so not possible. So please not. And second important thing that I said, that's comorbidities. So what are these? The medical complexities of all natures, like a congenital heart disease, neurologic, metabolic conditions, chronic renal disease. As you say, that adults we have more than 60 age group, hypertension, diabetes, previous malignancies, all these. So those are not here, but then certain medical diseases remain in pediatric age group also. Obesity is common, sickle cell disease, type 2 diabetes, and age less than 1 year, I already talked about. So among children less than 8, 10 to 19 years, what are the common symptoms? Excuse me. So these are the different symptoms. So all of us know, I need not read this list. The one which I have highlighted in blue is my personal experience. So till date, I have in my clinic diagnosed about 53 pediatric cases of COVID. And then with their adult counterparts and families, it's gone up to 100. So now these are the 4 important clinical features which I have seen: this fever, myalgia, headache, and diarrhea. So this is very, very common. And these are really important symptoms that one should remember. So cutaneous manifestations are also known in, so these are rashes. Dengue also we know about rash. So all sorts of, like measles will have maculopapular, urticarial, that rash can have vesicular eruptions like chickenpox, they can also come. And these are COVID toes. Once you see, you will never forget it. So again, it's a vascular manifestation which happens. It's an immune related phenomenon. And what happens is there are red purple bumps on the toes with pain and redness, similar to chilblains. If any one of you has been to Himalayas or extreme cold weather, so what happens there? Something like that. So they're very painful, tender, they're red violaceous lesions which you see in the extremities. But fortunately, the patients become better by 2 to 3 weeks. So after the clinical features, now whom to test? Remember, very important thing to understand. Those who have underlying conditions. So if we compromise a chronic cardiac pulmonary disease, please test them immediately. There is no exposure in last 14 days. Previously, you remember March, April, we started off with that 14 days history of US, UK, Dubai travel. Now it has come to exposure to case. And a symptomatic child. Yes, every child who has a symptoms, please test them. Decision regarding universal testing before elective surgery is individualized. And let me share, in my hospital now, we have had quite a number of cases, pediatric surgical cases being operated. And lately, last 1 or 2 months, more than 2 months, the pediatric surgeons and anesthetists are not insisting on every case, pediatric case, to undergo COVID test. So let's individualize it. Let me not give you a blanket answer to this. So what are the tests? All of us are aware the RT-PCR remains the gold standard, the most specific test done in government as well as private labs. But then it is not full, because we know that foolproof, because the sensitivity is to the tune of 60% maximum, and it goes down to 47% at the end of 1 week. So 3rd to 5th, 6th, 7th maybe days are the ideal times, but then after 7 days it goes down. Serology, antibody detection, not at all for diagnosis. It's an epidemiological purpose for some other reasons, but not for diagnosis of COVID in an acute case. But rapid antigen test. We know that it is now. I'm really happy and proud to be a Navi Mumbai that we have this test, and our commissioner Abhijit Bankar has taken it up so seriously, and now we have every center doing it, and then immediately inform us about the reports within literally 30 minutes. So it is a third sensitivity is half of that of a RT-PCR, but still, if it is positive, 100% we have to do it. The message everyone knows that if it a antigen test is positive, story ends. So you have COVID-19. If it is negative and if you're still symptomatic, yes, they draw sample for RT-PCR and then they check accordingly. So this is the way one has to go as far as diagnosis is concerned. How to be grade severity of COVID? Mild, moderate, severe, critical remains the same. Mild is the commonest in pediatrics. So what do I mean by mild? No new increased requirement of oxygen. The child just had some fever, cough, throat pain, something like that. That's it. That is mild case. Moderate, that means a radiological pneumonia without hypoxemia. So he has a radiological evidence, but there's no hypoxemia. So that's moderate. Severe word equivalent to hypoxemia. The moment your saturation goes down below 94, then you are considered to be a severe. And then this 6 minutes walk test that we do in adults, even 4 to 11-year-old pediatric patients can also be subjected to this test. And critical, unfortunately, is ARDS or respiratory failure, multi-organ dysfunction, child in shock. They're all very, very critical. So just pay your attention to this figure is very important. That in adults, what we say is 81% are mild, pediatric is 94%. Adults 14% are moderate, pediatric is 5%. Adult severity is 5%, we have 0.6%, and maximum in less than 1 year with comorbidities. So point to drive home is 94% of your pediatric patients are going to have a mild disease. That's so reassuring, isn't it? And look at the figure, 81 to 94, that's a huge reassurance. So that's why I'm happy to be a pediatrician, because my patients usually have a milder disease. So can I manage these mild patients at home? Yes, basically everybody should manage them only at home. Never ever admit a quarantine center. Only, the basic requirements are same, that they should have the caretaker, of course, in a pediatric will come unless the child is 14, 15 and can manage himself. But then separate toilet and all those things remain the same. So unless they have a chronic condition, if the child has in fact, my first patient, the baby had VSD, so the ventricular septal defect. So that had to be admitted. But otherwise, rest of the patients we are managing at home. And we have to take care that prevention of transmission. We said 10 to 12 days are important. Monitoring of clinical deterioration, we have to tell them about red flag signs, talk to them every morning and evening, reduce the burden on NMMC doctors, and we have to give them supportive care. Investigations, I'm concentrating right now on mild patients. CBC is normal in most of the children, but remember that there is a white blood cell count which can be on the lower side, neutropenia, lymphopenia. The neutrophil to lymphocyte ratio more than 3.13 is a significant initial factor which can tell us that probably we are going to face some complicated or a stormy course may happen down the line. CRP infective marker, the procalcitonin, so elevated inflammatory markers. Basically, I'll come to that multisystem inflammatory syndromes, and creatine kinase or liver enzymes in certain patients. But point to be noted, mild cases, please do not advise any test. Moderate to severe, yes, we may have to do number of laboratory tests, and not only once, we may have to repeat them time and again. Talking about imaging facilities, all of us know that it may be present before symptoms, but then in between, I heard that many people are doing CT scan, even if RT-PCR is negative. Every patient, please don't do that. A patient who is significantly symptomatic, has a distress, and RT-PCR was negative, yes, we may require it. But in a milder case, or just the child had, or somebody had fever, CT scan is not a replacement to RT-PCR. We know that ground glassing is common and unilateral, bilateral, certain percentage. 50% of our pediatric patients can have X-ray findings. So what are the potential markers for severe disease in pediatric age group? The CRP, procalcitonin, interleukin-6, ferritin, D-dimer, they remain the same. And then in adults, we have lymphocytopenia, elevated liver enzymes, LDH, which are not proven to be so important as far as initial manifestation is concerned. When the patient goes into severe to critical phase, all these things they matter in both pediatric as well as adult age group. With that, let me bring to you last but a very important case, that this is a 10-year-old child, comes with high fever since 6 days. The child has red eyes and lips, strawberry tongue, toxic looking, cold extremities. RT-PCR is COVID-19 negative. So can this be a Kawasaki disease? So Kawasaki or a mucocutaneous lymph node syndrome is a disease which is not very uncommon in this part of our city. So we have to be, raise our antennas for that. And COVID antigen antibody, IgG antibody in this child came as positive. So what is it? So this is the patient which I had seen a couple of years ago, not this particular index patient. As you can see that red eyes, I just wanted to show you, make you aware about Kawasaki. If any one of you has not seen it, these are the cracked leaves. This is a non-purulent conjunctivitis. They have a lymph node unilaterally raised. So they have disc emission, or you look at this, you cannot miss such kind of strawberry tongue. They could be edema. And the hallmark of this Kawasaki disease is child is extremely irritable and almost continuous fever for more than 5 days is a prerequisite. Of course, there are some incomplete and other Kawasaki's, but let's not go into details. But important to remember, so this is something like a Kawasaki disease. So now this is the important thing that we said, multi-system inflammatory syndrome. This is coming up in COVID in pediatrics. In fact, in pediatrics right now, we are all worried only about this as the cause of, worry. And these are the patients going into ICU, not the routine COVID, unlike the adult population. So we have 4 varieties of COVID-19. In most children, first, let me see, COVID-19 causes no or mild symptoms. So majority, as I said, 94% of them. COVID-19 associated febrile inflammatory. That means this patient has fever, headache, fatigue, and they have elevated ferritin, and signs of multi-system involvement are lacking. So only one inflammatory marker apart from systemic symptoms. Now this third category is Kawasaki, like the one which I showed you. So incomplete or complete Kawasaki, and they do not go into shock or multi-system. So only Kawasaki like presentation. And last, this is really very, very, very fearful presentation. They have high fever, they have inflammatory marker which was raised, they are multi-system involvement, cardiac, and shock. So this is how 4 ways this pediatric COVID, this is the only serious manifestation of pediatric as of now today. And let me just sensitize, because these patients can come to you, they will have continuous high fever, they'll be a little toxic looking, and they can present in 3-4 ways. One is this Kawasaki type, which I said, one may have only inflammatory markers, and some can go directly into shock, and they can die. Some of these patients unfortunately died also. Though this is not very common, to tell you about 6 per 1,000 patients have been seen to have such kind of presentations, but I'm just making you aware of this. So how can I differentiate from Kawasaki? Because Kawasaki is usually younger age group. So these are older children with have significant cardiac involvement. Kawasaki not, though it is important, but these patients have more cardiac. The macrophage activation is much more common. And this is an immune mediated phenomenon. Non-neutralizing antibodies involved. So neutralizing antibodies against COVID give us protection. So even vaccine, we are going to look for that. But immune mediated reaction and the antibodies which are created, they potentiate the effect of virus on the body. So that is how one can go downhill rather than getting better. So just to sensitize all of you, please remember something like this. And early detection, if the child comes to you with high grade fever and any of these features, or you just can't make out right now in today's scenario, because it doesn't happen in acute COVID, it happens over a period of few weeks to months. So early detection and timely referral, and probably when we do antibody test, we come to know that probably this child had COVID earlier, and this is a immunological manifestation which has come up later on. So treatment of COVID-19, finally, we know the hydroxychloroquine, no. Let me just give you final answers. Lopinavir, ritonavir, no. Ivermectin, no. Doxycycline, azithromycin, no. We as a doctors have habit of giving everybody one of these doxy, azithro, kaitari COVID la farak padel. Please don't do that. Favipiravir, wonderful drug which has come up lately into, they're giving it to a mild to moderate cases, oral drug, but then pediatrics, not yet, there's just conservative management. Oxygen, of course, those who have hypoxemia will need them. Remdesivir has come up in pediatrics also, but then that doesn't come to in our domain, when the patient has to be admitted and given there. So it's usually given 5 days, and if the patient is on mechanical ventilation, then probably it is required for about 10 days. Steroids, another humble plea to all of you, never ever. Dexas, बहुत studies publish हो गए, let me try, बंद तो हो जाएगा, prednisolone देके देखते हैं, no, 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 no. Please do not. So antibiotics and steroids, let's not touch them. Tocilizumab, plasma, pediatric studies are not yet completely out. Unfortunately, as I said, we do not need it in routine COVID patients unless they have this sort of immunological complications, and just now what I talked about as PIMS. Okay, so now in the end, let me just share with you certain practical tips, practice tips, in fact, that in you and me in day-to-day practice, how can we protect ourselves as well as our patients? Now, in pediatrics as well as in adult age group, I would make a plea that please avoid NSAIDs. Use paracetamol only. Mefenamic acid No. Ibuprofen, no. Use only paracetamol 15 milligram per kilogram per dose. You can go up to 60 milligram per kilogram per day. So 4 times allowed. Wonderful antibiotic. Stick to that. Forget COVID. In last maybe about 20 years, I have not used any other antibiotic apart from paracetamol. So paracetamol is the best antibiotic. Secondly, avoid nebulized medication. Those who have been given, now all of you must be already aware that nebulization is because you are generating more aerosol generation. So that's why we are not supposed to do that. And metered dose inhalation is the order of the day. And if in case you have to use it, infection control precautions need to be taken for yourself as well as safety for your staff, as well as patients, their relatives. All of us need to be very careful about it. Secondly, provision of empiric antibiotics. Again, I said that only if the patient has community acquired or if a healthcare associated pneumonia. Now I talked about complicated severe patients, critically ill patients. There I would not say all the reports are normal, cultures are negative. Should we not treat with antibiotic? Yes, give the highest one, maybe piperacillin, tazobactam, meropenem, whatever, because life and death is important and the patient is critically sick. But apart from that, routine COVID-19 patients, unless and until you have diagnosed a pneumonia, please do not give. That is very important. Continuation of empiric antibiotics somebody has started is determined by cultures and other microbial tests, and then depending on the patient's clinical conditions, as I explained. So bacterial co-infection appear to be very infrequent. We have a habit of saying viral है, लेकिन bacterial हो सकता है, इसके लिए मैं antibiotic से cover करता हूँ. That's a general. Measles से लेके influenza से लेके everything. Of course, in those situations you may have to really give it, but no, common cold maybe we give it, chickenpox maybe we give it, mumps maybe we give it, because these are all viral infections wherein we need not give antibiotics. So bacterial co-infections are infrequent in COVID-19, so let's not use them. Yeah, zinc, vitamin C, vitamin D, no pediatric studies, but I say that there is no harm if the patient has continued, or if you even if you recommend, fine, go ahead, give it. But a point of caution again about vitamin D, the mega doses of 60,000 units every day, every week, please don't do that unless you have documented a vitamin D deficiency. You're giving a therapeutic dose. Otherwise, asking them to take proper vitamin D is fine. If the sunlight, now last 1 month we have had no sunlight, but don't give these 60,000 sachets and then give them. So please don't do that. Multivitamin, fine, no problem. Okay, so practice tips. Apart from that, we have to manage our OPD timing. That is very important. Let's stick to our timings, give scheduled timing appointments, be in time. All of us need to be in time also, and then finish the OPD in time. Avoid crowd at any time. That is very, very important. Only one person. So maybe one person in front of you in the consulting, one person outside in the bench, rest of them either somewhere out if they have their vehicle or auto, they sit there. Your duration of contact with patient is less than 15 minutes. So sometimes if you can take telephonically history, that's fine. But the patient interaction should be, in fact, 15 is, I put in because the publication said 15, but what I follow in my practice is 10 minutes. So more than 10 minutes, I do not. I take entire history. When I get up from my chair and go to the patient to examine, I tell the father or mother, because only one person has come in, now you please don't speak anything. Let me check this baby. I go back and sit my chair in my chair, which is about 2 meters away from that patient. And if you have any couple of questions remaining, they can ask. So that is very important. Mask is a must. Your mask protects me. My mask protects you. Remember this golden sentence. Maintain 6 feet distance anytime. No unnecessary talks. कैसे है डॉक्टर साहब, बहुत दिन में, अरे आज भीड़ कम है, कैसा चल रहा है, आपको अभी तक हुआ कि नहीं, क्या है? नो नो नो, प्लीज. If you want, use smartphone, chat with them, talk to them on telephone. I don't mind. But in front of you, they are not supposed to talk any outside. How weather, बारिश कम होगी, कोविड कंट्रोल में होगा, प्लीज ये सब बाद में फोन पे बात करते हैं, अभी बीमारी के बारे में बात करते हैं. Sterilization of surfaces, we were very 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 serious and sincere about it. In fact, vegetables washing से लेके दूध की थैली से लेके, in our clinic room, we have surface cleaning from sodium hypochlorite, so ethyl alcohol. We have been using that, but then we have come to understand that this is not the mode of transport. Most important is droplets, aerosols, and this formats is really lesser number of way of transferring COVID from one person to another. Taking care of hand wash after every patient is important. After every 1 hour, at least do wash your hands. And if you have touched a febrile patient, after every febrile patient, don't rely only on that hand sanitizers. I recommend 20 seconds thorough hand wash after touching every febrile patient. Please don't touch your mask every now and then. even doctors and patients all have a habit. One of a very senior physician I met in one of the hospital's emergency room recently, he came next to me and I just removed his mask and started talking to me. I was taken away. I went running behind. I said, "What are you doing?" He's a very good friend of mine. He said, "No, nothing. Probably I have a feeling that I have had COVID before." I said, "You may have had. I don't want to. Please put your mask first, then we shall speak. Otherwise, not." So never ever speak with anybody who is not wearing a mask, and don't keep doing this, touching here, touching there, removing. Please, no, 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 no. If you have touched, immediately wash. If you want to touch, then please again wash, remove, do. While drinking water, also I do not allow even my receptionist or assistant to come in the room. I stop the patients. I have my water and again open the door, and no, because that time I don't want anybody just to be there and then get that COVID. So let's all be very cautious, because I said just because of casual approach and then getting, many of our probably colleagues have this. Fortunately, everybody is not going critical or serious, but then it's one of the things that somewhere the lapses are occurring. So when examination of oropharynx, in fact, the recommendation is we need not check every throat. But we pediatricians have habit, because so many follicular tonsillitis is a very, very common diagnosis. But now I've started realizing and relying more on tender jugular digastric lymph nodes or something like that, or symptoms when the patient says Virtana Dukta. So these are the symptoms I concentrate more on. And then if I take care, then I have to, personal protective equipment has to be worn before checking the oropharynx, whether or not the child has symptoms, because that time you're like exposing, going close, and the child has opened his mouth. So please be careful about that. This is another thing which I would recommend, because I use it, the ultraviolet C lights. We know that even sun rays have UVA, B, C. UVC have the shortest wavelength, but then they're detrimental to our skin, and in fact the ozone layer stops it. So in fact we are protected from sun UVC light reaching to us. It is a UVB light which gives us a vitamin D, but this is a UVC light, this is my consulting room, and I put it before I start my session, and at the end of the session I put it on for about 15 minutes, and the good results that your room consulting chamber is totally protected with this. Of course, if you are taking any other surface cleaning, and that's also is fine, but then this is an easier method which I am following it almost since last 3 months. Finally, for mask, WHO has said now no mask. This is just a couple of days ago it has come. In general, they said that less than 5 years, you must have got a shock of your life, that less than 5 years, we are so particular about mask. So this advice is based on safety and overall interest of the child and the capacity. They felt that appropriately they cannot use it. They need to have some assistance. So those who need it, probably, or seriously ill patient in the house, yes. And if the child can take care, but less than 2 years, it was always there that nobody should wear mask. Now it has come that less than 5 years also, children, every child need not wear. But 5 to 11 and 11 onwards, everybody is supposed to wear mask. Of course, I again tell you that if your patients are comfortable, patient means pediatric population is comfortable wearing it, let them, don't stop them. But just at the back of your mind, you should be aware of this, that now WHO has said that no masks are less than 5 years. Finally, the family doctors, please take care of disruption of immunization. Let us not have any disruption, because they have, all patients should have this immunization as per schedule. Prolonged home confinement, opportunity to enhance parent-child relationship, physical, mental health, please take care of that also. Children are not playing physically active, they spend more time with electronic devices, it poor quality. So whenever you have an interaction, and if you come across a pediatric patient or the parents, please tell them, at least at home, let them have physical games, running around somewhere, jumping, skipping, something, Surya Namaskar, something they can do to remain physically fit. And I will always insist on a good, healthy diet. Many health stressors because of infection, fear of infection, boredom, and social isolation can cause this. So I think that is very important. So friends, I would just conclude by saying pediatric COVID, it's very reassurance, first of all, remember that there's very low incidence. It's just 4% out of the 100% COVID. If you say in population, it's much milder, shorter duration of illness. And even if unfortunately some of our pediatric patients have severe pneumonia, it has a very good outcome. Thank you very much for your patient hearing.
Excellent presentation, Dr. Upendra. See the chat box. So many questions are there.
Kinjodekar sir, can you read, or otherwise I can read for you? Let me know.
Chat मध्ये आहेत का?
Yes sir. Otherwise, should I read?
नाही, मी चालू करतो, एक करतो. Okay. child suffering from only mild has to be tested for COVID for the safer side? No. Only cold cough, please do not test them. Fever, if it is there, then only please. Or if there is a strong history of contact. If you find this child has some other comorbidities, then again, just you can err on the safer side. But no, because allergic rhinitis and all these patients need not be tested. So fever becomes really very important. Then should school be started? Yeah, I have a feeling that though I'm not an authority to speak about it, that there is a possibility of this kind of spread, which this today only I read message children hospital study. Same time, somewhere, sometime, I think Karnataka is starting it on 1st of October. They're starting September online classes, but then it has to go in very gradual manner. I feel it's the 8th, 9th, 10th, or 11th, 12th matters the most, and we should take minimum chances. And these nursery, junior, senior, and up to 4th really do not matter much. They should be the last. Please put your question. What is the dose of Fabiflu? Now, Fabiflu, they have done studies, but in fact, I just mentioned about it, but it is not yet recommended in the milder cases. So let's leave it at that. And what is important to understand that conservative care. So please, Fabiflu is not yet become a standard of care even in mild patients. Only two places it has been given. Navi Mumbai, can you please repeat treatment with doses? No, you did not know this treatment with doses because mild cases we are not going to use. Moderate to severe patient is going to be in the hospital. So treatment remains same. So the remdesivir remains the drug of choice. Just understand two important things. It is the hypoxemia. May it be pediatric, may it be adult. Oxygen, oxygen, oxygen. So if your patient has COVID, ask them to do saturation on the middle finger. इंडेक्स फिंगरवर बघायचं मिडल फिंगरवर त्याला बघायचं and put that pulse oximeter 6-minute hypoxia test less than 94 because when to give steroid if the oxygen is less than 94, when to give remdesivir if the oxygen is less than 94 or the fever continues for more than 5 days. So for that matter these two important things are there. So why children is less affected due to SARS-CoV-2? I think this person has not listened to my talk earlier. 540 Mahesh Patsalge has written, sir. So point Mahesh is very important. Number of other coexisting viral infections which are there. So that's why they do not allow SARS-CoV-2 to hang in over there. That is one reason. Secondly, we do have MMR BCG vaccination that also gives our pediatric patients a proper protection. Third, very important is the vessels as well as lungs are much better as compared to adults. And last but not the least, most important is the ACE2 beta, the ACE2 receptor which is there. It is much different from the adult age group. That is another reason. And last is immunity. The innate and adaptive immunity is much less developed in pediatric as compared to adults. So that way it doesn't go into that cytokine storm, which we are all worried about. So patients of childhood asthma, ICS, allergic rhinitis, are they more? No, 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 no. They are at all at more risk. Continue whatever ICS or allergic rhinitis treatment they are on. Very good question. Can we continue nebulization? Please no, Santosh Kumar Shinde. Please no nebulization. Use meter dose inhalation. If we give nebulization, we are going to generate aerosol, which we do not want. You know, your staff, you in that room, it will all come spread. Please do not give nebulization. How about surface transmission, airborne transmission? Yes, it is known. Definitely it is there. So continue to use the sodium hypochlorite. Airborne, you can't do much. So don't talk. In fact, you wear mask, I wear mask. Both of us are protected very importantly. What is the role of methylprednisolone, IVIG? Yeah, very good question. Dr. Sarvesh has asked. So methylprednisolone steroids, all three have been tried. They have tried about dexamethasone. They have tried about prednisolone oral and then methylprednisolone. When the patient is really sick in hospital, they give low dose of about 1 milligram per kilogram of methylprednisolone for 5 days. IVIG not routinely, but these the PIMS patients which I said, the multisystem inflammatory syndrome in children, there the IVIG comes. Kawasaki IVIG comes into. I won't talk about it, but yes, definitely there is a role there. Chronic asthma has to be differentiated between regular infection and COVID. Can nebulization? I've already answered. Nebulization. Oh, so many. No, 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 no nebulization. How to convince isolation in suspected COVID in pediatrics? So depends on the age. I said I think I talked about it. The child is old. You know, if he's more than 12 years, they have many of them have their own room also. If it is not, they can stay. But then there has to be a caretaker. The younger child, no. I have many infants who have, but mothers have taken care of them. So there has to be one adult has to go with them. So there is no shortcut into that. but even in close proximity, wear mask. I want to take care of the grandparents. Why do I do test is because the grandparents, because they are more than 60, they have comorbidities. So many of my patients, the parents were 32, 34, the child is young, nothing has happened, so they're all fine. But I don't want the grandparents in the house, and even especially if they have only a single attached toilet to it, there is no attached toilet there. Please be careful. Children will present 3 to 4 weeks post eclipse clinically. Yes, of course. The Dr. Pankaj Tardeja is from UAE, very good friend of mine. What he has said is very important, that they can come with this, what I talked about. So that's why during active phase, nothing may happen. And this is typically in older age group, it's happening. So they have seen 10 to 18, but we have in India, cases have been reported from 4 years onwards also. So even if the patient had COVID or no COVID test was done, they can suddenly land up here, and then you do antibody and you understand, because as you know, antibody takes time to develop. So it's 7 to 14 days. The role of flu vaccine continue. It may not directly protect you, but then flu is also, we know that this is the time flu can come. So annual influenza vaccination is a must, and please do not stop it. Very good question. Post exposure, I don't know what does it mean, post exposure. So I've already talked. Role of ivermectin, very good question. Absolute no. Ivermectin is given up. There was a Bangladesh study, and now we do not recommend ivermectin. So please do not use it, ivermectin. The recommendations on using UV lights to sterilize personal stuff like key and mobile, very good question. I did not because want of time. Excellent question. I do use it at home. So when I come back, I put my mask, my glasses, my pen, my wallet, whatever I've been carrying on t-shirt or a shirt, wherever, and then put it under that UV light for 15 minutes, 10 minutes in fact, and then turn it around, because only the surface which is there that gets protected. You turn it around and you get the cover. So that is very important. UV light. Which day of fever we should do RT-PCR? As early as first day or second day, if may take. And if there's a contact history, no problem. As I said, today patient, I did it on day 1 and both of them were positive. Can we reuse N95? Yes, there is a way of using N95. The people do microwaving also, but the ideal is what the AIMS initially said. In fact, I don't use every time N95. Even the surgical mask, 3-ply or 4-ply surgical mask is good enough. No need to worry. Just keep mask on, good nutrition, continue all regular vaccination, avoid gathering. Absolutely right. Dr. summed up really very well. That is the best multivitamin, all anything, your choice. That doesn't make any difference. So very important to understand that it is all come to that COVID is here. It is going to stay. How long? My prediction is vaccine may not come till about 4 to 6 months. It may take to the vaccine, and we are not yet sure. All of you are aware that the first case report of Hong Kong patient who got second time infected. So 33-year-old patient had this, and then again he got infected. So we may have repeat, and we come to annual vaccination. But imagine the population of our country, 130 crores. How many doses are going to require? When will it reach? When mera number kab aayega? Pata nahi. So taking care, mask, social distancing, avoiding gatherings is the only way, and let us really be careful about it.
I think there are plenty of questions. I think we should wait because we are running out of time.
Ajun, I have Prashna?
Yes.
Mahesh has to add something. Upendra, very nice presentation. All questions also very rapid fire. I think you possess a AK-47 with you now. Mahesh Parsal.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes. Basically, I want to just add 2-3 points. One is children are less affected from age 1 year to 10 years. And the reason behind that, which I could find in immunological system, is they have very high number of NK cells, which is a part of innate immunity, and innate immunity is very important to act on this virus. So NK cells are called as natural killer cells. They are the initial gatekeepers actually in the body, and they are very high numbers in the children's. That's the reason children's are less affected. Next reason probably which I read is children's are more affected with multiple virus, so their immunity is tuned to just attack on the newer virus. Third, these viral infections, multiple viral infections to the children's, they probably have cross reactivity to the antibodies which they are possessing now. And that's the reason probably children are less affected and severely not going to the severe stage. Because if you see the death rate, it is only 0.2% to the whole affected children. So next one thing which I wanted to add, that school should not be open according to me also, as sir said, because if you just see the yesterday's publication of Harvard University, they have just compared the nasal swab viral numbers in the ICU setting patients and the children who were staying in the school. they have found out 10 folds viruses are there in the nasal swab of the children's, even though they are not affected as a disease. So they can be the source of infection in the huge spread in the school. So that is the second point which I wanted to add. Third point that sir was totally against about nebulization. But again, if you just, sir, I don't know in the pediatric population, but in adults, Dr. Richard Butler, he is working very fantastically on inhaled budesonide actually. So if inhaled budesonide, he has not started in a patient who affected with the respiratory system, but he has started on the day of diagnosis, and he feels that many of his patients and many numbers, thousands of patients he has treated with budesonide and nebulization, and he felt that the progression of this SARS-CoV general mild infection to severely infection is been prevented. So this is from my side. Thank you so much for sharing my thoughts.
Thank you, Mahesh. Arun.
Yes. So this is most successful CME webinar, interactive webinar we are having. More than 100 doctors are attending, and then people from UAE and people from doctor from Pune and somebody traveling also are attending. This is a beauty of this webinar.
Going to their OPD.
Yes, right. So a lot of things like we are like facing this corona since last more than 6 months, and then still we are getting new information. I think this was one of the most wonderful sessions we have attended and most useful tips we have got. And then no one is immune in this age criteria is concerned. Kids get symptoms a little earlier, like 2 days, within 2 days also, I think. And BCG and MMR is under evaluation, as you said. And C19, like C positive, 19 positive mothers, like basically are that are more at vertical transfer and vaginal delivery, more at risk. And then so a lot of things. And then neutrophil lymphocyte ratio is one of the, I think, take home tip. It's a very useful tip.
Hey, what about breastfeeding?
Continue.
Okay.
With mother has to wear mask and hand hygiene, and the moment she finishes her feeding, keep the baby away. That's the only thing.
Matlab positive mother can feed her.
Yeah. Positive mother.
Okay.
And new thing we have added that within last 2 days we have listened that no mask for 5 years children. That is one of the good things we are doing. Hand over to S.V. Kulkarni for Thanksgiving, please. Kulkarni sir, for Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Upendra, you have not only crossed the borders of the group, but you have gone up to Chiplun also. My friend, my classmate Sanjeev Sane is attending. I can see Dr. Evle also is there in our group, and there are people from Pune and Sangli, Satara, Kolhapur also they are attending. So your name has got a very, very big value, as well as the activities of Arun Kure and this NMDF. Extremely knowledgeable and to the point presentation, and it will be really useful to all of us. It will be available on YouTube, and please try to share more and more thoughts like this, which are accessible, available, affordable, adoptable, and which we can start using from tomorrow morning. Thank you very much. Really a very high degree of appreciation from all of us. The chat box is full with only bouquets of flowers only for you.
Yes.
Thank you, Arun.
Yes.
And thank you, Sangeeta, for a good introduction, and Arun to conduct